this is Christian Buckley with CollabTalk, and I'm here now talking about the blurring of the line between project management and collaboration. I'm here with Steve ZoBell. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to meet you. Steve ZoBell. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer here at Workfront, and just thrilled to be here chatting with you today.
Excellent. And I know that just for everybody out there that don't know Steve's background, so Steve, how long were you at Microsoft?
Yeah, actually, I kind of come from a weird background. My initial 14 years of life were in video games, and 7 years of that was with Microsoft. And after that, I decided let's go into something more fun like collaborative software.
Yeah. Well, it's a good and it's a growing space, and certainly, I mean, your company is growing rapidly as well. So I've known a few folks that have been over there. But well, let's jump in on this topic because talking about collaborative software. I mean, big part of my background, project and portfolio management, it always, I would go in and work with companies that either had an existing project management solution in place, which was always separate from and integrated in maybe into like their intranet or into their other knowledge or collaboration management platforms. But we're seeing this shift now, and maybe you'd love to hear your thoughts on this of collaboration technologies capabilities that are just becoming native within the project, and vice versa. You have I'm wearing a SharePoint t-shirt here, but you have a lot of like Microsoft products, but also competing platforms that started out as knowledge and document collaboration that have then gone and added project management capabilities. So where is the line today?
I actually don't think it's a line. I think it's actually, as we look at it and as I reference it, you got to take a step back and look at work. So you got these tools and these solutions that they're out there, and we're trying to get, what are they out there for? It's because we're trying to get work done. And how do you get the work done? And it's what we look at it and call the DNA of work. And the fundamental DNA of work is the task of what's got to get done, the collaboration of who it's going to get done, because it's going to be in a team, and teamwork is hard. And then there's some type of asset. Typically it's digital, it's going along with it. Those three components are the DNA of work. Any work that's getting done, those are fundamental. So to me, you cannot have the task and the work projects without the collaboration. It's just not a part of it.
Well, it's something that I talk a lot about is the fact that when you lose, there's latency between those work activities when the place that you're reporting on like having a conversation with somebody is separate from where the work is actually getting done. And so that's been one of the movements is that, whether you're working in like your software configuration management platform or a ticketing system, or even your CRM platform is having more and more of the social interaction, the conversation aspect of that, but also then integrating in so that to make sure that, well, if I'm completing subcomponent subtasks within this larger activity that I own, that I'm not having to go and do like double entry in the systems to show that I've updated that. But
right, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And as work is happening, as everything we look at with work and as it's transitioning, we really believe that people are looking for so much more than just project management. They used to be saying, hey, I want to go in and it's okay to be, I'm going to have my PMI certified people. They're going to go and do the work. But you're having this new generation of workers where they want to be experts at getting stuff done, but they don't want to be worrying about some of these higher order, these different type of constraints of these different systems. But in reality, they really need some of those areas to go about to help them get work done. And so as we look at it, we're looking to drive and saying, how do you really help these workers accomplish what they need to, drive the work through? And this means that the collaboration, it might happen in the system, but if not, it's got to be able to meet them where they actually live. So there's got to be integrations. We believe that if a system is going to be, you've got to collaborate within this tool to get work done, that's not going to satisfy the majority of the workers that are out there because they're used to communicating how they need to be. As we look at it, and as I speak within Workfront, we really believe that work as it's driving in that area is really becoming what we're pushing as we are the operational system of record for a business. So we're going to track how work's happening across the board, but we're going to do it in a way where we're not just tracking what's happening within the PMO organization or what's happening within the marketing or the creative team, but actually making it so they can understand their programs, portfolios, and projects, but deeply how it ties in across all the rest of the enterprises across the system. So the collaboration has got to be happening deeply in all the tools that they're using, whether it's Slack, whether it's Teams, all those different tools. A project management solution must be able to communicate across all of those.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, one thing that and I've run a lot of PMOs and spent some years as a consultant building that out for clients. And I was telling you one of my clients. So back in 2005, that I did a deployment here in Utah before going back to Washington State. But one of the things that I always do is with my PMs and a lot of my even business analysts, which very different role. Don't get me started on that, what a project manager is, what a business analyst is. A business analyst is not a junior project manager, anyway. But I would, last couple clients and projects that I worked with, and I would pay for my direct reports to go through and get their PMP certification, go get that PMI certification. And I would tell them, though, to come back is to be prepared to not so much forget about most of what they learned, but only apply what was needed there. Because I saw my 15 years in that space in particular was people that were diehard on the methodology and trying to force fit methodology into the in this with a lot of these collaborative tools that are much more of a dynamic, like, hey, I need to go work with Steve on this, spin this up. We've got our conversations. We've got the necessary documents, links to the system around that. We complete the tasks, close it, and that we're done. What is the role of methodology, and how do you look at a methodology and like the standard IT organization and how it's managing those work activities?
That's a great question. We look at it from basically two different angles. First of all, you've got to be able to work, both the humans and the systems have got to work in what we call structured flexibility. It's got to be, if you're doing a tool or you're using a process, you've got to be able to say, how do we adapt it for the work that is happening within this business? So for example, you've got to make sure that they can actually say, what are the right workflows that we're going to give them within reason? We're not saying give them a very rigid way, it's got to be completely defined.
Right.
But then make it so people can very flexibly be able to drive through that structure to get work done. Like you said, it's got to be fluid, spinning it up, spinning it down, and driving it through it. But it's also got to be in a way where both the person coming in doing the work as well as the software being used, it's got to come in with a point of view. It's got to actually help them understand, how can you move work along the best? Many times you find it where the tools are out there and they're simply saying, I'm an open canvas upon which you can create projects and portfolios and tasks, but it doesn't help move the work along in an automated way where people know what work should happen next, and make it in a way where it's more just in time rather than go check the software. I fundamentally believe a failing measure for any type of technology for project management is if people are spending more time in the tool.
Yeah.
Because that any tool that they're using to drive work is simply to help them be more effective at the work they're doing using their creative genius. If they're spending more time in the tool, they're not using their creative genius. They're using the tool to actually try and get work done. I hope that makes sense of what I'm what I'm saying there. And so, you look at like many like B2C apps or things that are like, oh, we got like our daily active users, their time in the application went up. We view that as a fail if they're spending more and more time in the product, because that means they're not actually doing revenue generating. Now, of course, there's the exceptions where
there's correlation between like projects actually being completed and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Like you want your project managers, yes, you want them in there working the tool and it's driving them through it. But if the end users are spending more and more time in the tool, they're not actually driving better revenue for the customer. Well, and that's where.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and that's where, back to tying back what you're saying is, as people come back, whether they've come from a certification class or they've just bought a new tool, they've got to be ensuring that everything they're focusing on is on the business outcomes. And I know it sounds pedantic and I know it sounds like, 101, but we find so often people get so focused on the tools and the processes that they're not saying, what is the ROI and KPI as to what this project is accomplishing?
Right. Well, that's actually a key, one, monitoring, and there's a great quote. So during my business school, I had a classmate, older gentleman that had shared something that was a quote that his father told him that stuck with him. It's stuck with me. It said, methodology is guidelines to live by, not rules to die by. Meaning, use it as it makes sense to structure to guide you on that, but where it doesn't make sense, don't force it, and go and apply that. Now it's, because that is in a lot of organizations. That's my experience as a project management practitioner, that I struggled with people that'd be like, yes, but I have this documentation, to go fill out. Here's a great example of this where it was hurt. So it was part of an acquisition a few years ago. Well, the acquiring company that absorbed this smaller software company I was working for had a sales process around it. Well, the benefit of this company that we got bought was that we had a really strong sales organization, and that the salespeople had contacts where they literally we got bought by this biggest company that had these other products. They just phoned up these prospects or these current customers and said, hey, we're now part of this bigger company. There are these other products I think you really need. And sight unseen, some of these very large customers were like, look, I've got a relationship with this guy, just will want to buy that. Just want to buy it. But then what happened is that the new management said, no. They've got to go through this staged methodology, and they lost sales. And so that's an example of that's not project management specific, but of where force-fitting process can kill innovation, can kill a lot of that. And and I think to your point too, is you've got to go look at and say, well, what was the point of doing this? If we drove the business forward, why go attach all this other fluff, this other stuff that was not needed to go and get that work activity completed?
And to your initial point of, there is times for the structure, and there is a place to have that structure. The generation that's coming in of the digital natives, and I don't believe the digital natives is based upon an age, it's based on a proficiency. But these digital natives, they are looking for work to be done in a way where they think differently than people in the past. And if you push that structure on them, they're going to push back because they're not used to that. One other item about that, just about the collaboration, is people are very used to collaborating how they want to. Like some use, if you think of just in the B2C world, some use WhatsApp, some use Messenger, some use different tools. It's coming to be, like we have BYOD, it's somewhat a BYOC within the office space where you've got people using, like I mentioned, Slack, or they're using Teams in that. But if that collaboration goes, unfettered, I guess I would say, it becomes so unwieldy and so out of control that people are like, well, did I send you that message in Slack, or is the document in email? And that's why we believe using those as communication tools to at least make sure that people are notified how they want to be notified. But you've got to have this operational system of record that's deeply integrated with those, so people know, I know where the source of truth is, but I'm going to collaborate and communicate where I want to on the stuff that's in that operational system of record.
Right. Well, and that is, you brought up, you mentioned, Slack and Teams. That's like one of the most compelling, aspects of the stories around that it's, they're both saying that, if you bring these other tools that you're finding useful, you're finding productivity that are helping you get your work done, don't stop using it and move to an inferior tool. Integrate it in. Like we've got these native integrations that are out there, or like with Teams, I just did this today where there's an integration that's not there. I went into for a client that I've got a team site, or a team, the language of product names in Microsoft world. But anyway, so I have a Microsoft Teams team for this client, created a new tab, drop in the web, the URL for this service, and it's now there. and there's a connector for it. So it's integrated into that, that threaded conversation, and it's there so that all of the tools that I need to work on that customer with my employees are all right there in one place. Slack has a similar model with that integration. There's a number of, coming from the Microsoft ecosystem, of course, we would like to say, hey, and for a long time under, Bomber, it was, if it's not a Microsoft, product to stamp on there, then, don't show your face around here. Famously, like going in the company meeting, saw somebody with an iPhone and grabbed it and pretended like he was going to slam it on the ground. And then you have a very different approach of Satya Nadella, who says, hey, our goal is to build the best products in the world. Where we're not the best, we will integrate with and support those solutions so our customers end to end have the right thing. And I look at that as, as being in as a project manager, as a business owner, as an operations manager. I've been in, director roles and had teams and teams of teams. And I want people to get stuff done at the end of the day. I want, like, here's what I gave you to do this year. I want that to happen and to roll up. As long as I have, and this is where a lot of the collaboration, I think the blurring of the line with the task management work activity and the collaboration platform is, I need to have visibility. I want to be able to jump in and to view that, but I need to know that it's being done in a structured, organized way and is driving towards ultimately the business goals. And
right.
Maybe you could talk about that, like that portfolio view, the ability for, this is a powerful thing about like social collaboration. Famously, there's one of the examples when Microsoft bought Yammer, and they brought in Nationwide Insurance, and they talk about how they built this community and were asking for feedback, and this like frontline answering the phone calls support person was asking for help, and there's like a week went by and nothing, and the CEO answered the question, and suddenly everybody's jumping into this conversation, giving her more ideas around that. And that was like trumpeted as, well, this is fantastic around that. And I look at that, well, that's kind of broken. It's like, but it's great to have the visibility. It's unfortunate that there wasn't like some process driving to get people to, compel them to participate and collaborate. But it was, I know that's kind of I hit a couple things there, but looking at, transparency of the collaborations, allowing people to, discover topics and conversations and get involved in things which may not be their direct role, their assignment. But like I've worked at a few different companies in a few different industries. If I see that there is somebody who has a task that's in an industry that I worked in for several years, have contacts and have experience in that, I want to be able to help, to participate, and to find those things. And that's another kind of the blurring of the line between collaboration. So how do you look at that as that transparency, the portfolio view of that, and allowing people to interact at different levels?
Yeah, that's a great question. As we look at that, it really comes from, you've got to make sure that you've got a system that is set up in a way where people can see from a business standpoint, what are the overall objectives and goals of the business? If you look at it, people want to have meaning of knowing, hey, does my work matter as I'm tying into that? And have it in a way where it's very transparent, that they can say, whether it's, a department, a team, or a supersized company, they can say, where is the work that matters overall? You look at it, there's different tools and mechanisms, whether it's like OKRs or different things like that, that they can actually understand what is the company trying to accomplish, but then have that task, have that directly tied all the way down through the project's portfolios, tasks, so they can understand, I see how the work I do ties to a company corporate objective, and making it so then they can understand, what, this is an objective that I'm really interested in, and I can see how my work ties in, and it ties in with other people to where, yes, we're working on the same portfolio, but also where they can see the greater part of the entire company of how's it going. So I fundamentally believe that if you're just thinking about programs and portfolios without tying it into an overall, how is the scorecard of the company looking with objectives, or the division or the department, it's going to make it so you're back to a less than optimal experience, because people have got to understand where it ties in. Now, how that collaboration happens, it can happen where they go and they communicate within whatever communication tool they want to go within. But one of the biggest challenges we see is we're seeing, and we did a study on this. McKinsey came out with a study literally within about weeks of ours, and we were off by 1% of each other. So we're like, hey, if McKinsey and us are that close.
Good validation.
Yeah. We said 39%, they said 40%. But they're saying the average knowledge worker we see spends 39% of their day doing their job. The other 61% is spent on all of the other noise that's happening, whether it's email, whether it's meetings, that they're not actually being a creative worker. And it's a challenge that's getting worse as we're getting more and more tools. So we've got to be ensuring that as we're working to bring out broader collaboration, because we need collaboration for teamwork. Everything's teamwork, and teamwork is hard. But that collaboration's got to be driving back to a focal point of, let's focus on creative genius, let's focus on ideation, and let's focus on how do we get to delivery rather than coordination, status updates, just the monotony that just.
Well, that's actually, you brought up a couple of great points. I mean, I know you've experienced the same thing where the problem with a lot of the traditional approach to project management tools and tracking, the activity is that, that the reporting rolls up like every Friday. So what do people do Friday afternoon? How long did I work? How much did I work on that client project? How much did I spend on that task? Enter stuff in there. The problem is then you don't get an accurate reckoning of what did it actually take. For a long time, I mean, the benefit of a project or portfolio management system, or was for years and years, is not, I mean, there's the day-to-day tracking of tasks and that side of it, and Gantt charts if you like those kinds of visuals. I like the more of the Kanban card, that side of it. A little more agile because look, priorities change daily around a lot of tasks and projects. But it was the benefit of that was showing the roll up. So over time, we know, hey, we've done that type of project, that type of deployment, whatever it is, 3 times now. Like, did we improve? Did we deliver faster? Did it cost less? Are we using the right resources, the right people? I mean, getting to that kind of data and learning about your business so that you can then optimize on that. Like, that's why we want those kinds of tools. And like you said, and be able to look at the stuff that I'm working on day to day, how it rolls up to what the company is trying to achieve. I always describe it as, like Microsoft employees have their individual commitments. And I always tell people, like, you want to know how to work with Microsoft person? Find out what their commitments are, because if you can show them as a partner, as a vendor, that you can help them hit or exceed their personal commitments, which all roll up to their team, their division, all the way up to corporate, they're going to want to work with you. If you can say, I can help you double that number, they want to work with you. But it all comes down to, like, you've got to accurately capture that information. Otherwise,
and it's got to be in a way where it meets them where they're at. If they feel like, I'll share, with all my friends out there quietly. I view it that we if somebody is actually doing something where they're spending too much time in Workfront, we call that workfronting. We don't want them workfronting. We want them working. We want them actually doing the creative work. Right. And it's exactly right, where it's got to be getting where it is. And like you mentioned, the different way of where people work. That's what we believe one of the fundamental pieces within Workfront is people work in different ways. And there's, you get people who sing from, like, the Church of Agile and say that's the only way to work. That is for some work. But you've got it where some work and some workers where they want to work waterfall. And while some people view that's a swear word, that makes sense to some people. And then you got others who want to work in Agile, whether it's Kanban, whether it's Scrum. And then you have others who they've got to work in a just-in-time. And there's no way you're going to collaborate as a group if you don't have a system that allows everyone to work how they need to work and still get it coordinated together. If you've got, well, we're in system A that's waterfall, and we're in system B that's Agile, and we're in system C that's like a total just-in-time, there's no way you're going to have effective collaboration. Yeah. And that's why you've got to make sure that the system can really handle that and be what we call multimodal, so they can really say, what's the mode of the right way to work for these humans or the right way to work for this outcome?
Yeah. Even then, I know it can get very complex and it's probably a little more involved to go into, but like even in a project where it might switch, the needs change. Maybe it gets to a different phase in your process where you're now engaging with some additional, people and
Absolutely.
vendors where the tools that you're using, the capability, you might need to switch that out. And so what doesn't change is that, you still have the corporate goals, the divisional goals, your team goals, and even your individual around that. And they all fit within that. And you also need to, from a governance standpoint, ensure that you are, secure, compliant, all of those kinds of things for any, enterprise system. Doesn't matter. You can have an enterprise system and be 2 people in a company, but but that it's you still follow those rules and laws. But let me ask you kind of last question here. And it's not a small question, but get your thoughts is like, what do you see as kind of the future of, well, as you say, project management, but really work management? I mean, do you see it going a certain direction? Are we kind of there and it's just going to get better? Or, I mean, anything that you can, share some thoughts.
So I fundamentally believe in 10 years, and I'm probably wrong, I'm probably slow, that the workplace experience of how people work is going to be fundamentally different. And I'm not talking about telecommuting, and I'm not, because I think that's there. We've got, these digital nomads, and that happens where it is.
Yeah.
It's in the way we go about getting work done and collaborating. And there's conversations of, robots are going to replace people's jobs. I fundamentally believe
the people who say that don't know human nature. That
exactly.
Why that would never happen. But anyway. Sorry.
Exactly. But I fundamentally believe that we're going to see a substantial transformation in the workplace in the next decade. And we're seeing some of it now. And a lot of that is going to be AI and ML fueled in the way where it is going to be helping make decisions that are mundane decisions being made today, driving through decisions where people are suddenly enabled that they feel like they can work. Like there's always jokes people say, oh, you mean like it'll be like a robot sitting here next to me, like right here? No, it's going to be like so automatic that things are happening that people are going to be like, I don't imagine doing this before. Like a simple example. Someone's going in saying, you know what, I have a new project I've got to start. And the system automatically, as you're working through the template, the version of what you're going to enter, it's like, do you realize the last 5 times you've done this, it took you 3 days and you're estimating 7 days. And it's going to automatically adjust that for you as you realize that, and getting it where people are going, oh, it's taking care of it. But I also believe it's going to move in a way where people really are going to focus on projects without them realizing it's a project. Every piece of work that is done, every interaction that happens within a business is a project. If you look at it at the most granular sense, what you and I are doing right now, it's a project. Now, if we
I refer to it as the Palmolive moment, like, oh, you're already soaking in it.
Yeah, exactly. But if people feel like they had to project manage it in classic project management, it'd die. It would never happen.
Their eyes glazed.
But so getting it where people can get it, where the system is bringing them in. And if you were to say to somebody, like if you were to ask a bunch of people, hey, did you create your project charter? They'd be like, dude, that is so old school, pocket protector. But if you have a system that guides them and says, what are the outcomes? What are the objectives? Who are the stakeholders? They'd be like, oh, I get it. So I believe that fundamentally the workplace you look at in the future is people are going to be collaborating where they want to collaborate, with the tools they want to, the systems they want to, where it's going to be, they've got the work that's actually being done is in a fundamental central system that is almost the fabric of what's happening within the business, without them even realizing it's in the fabric of there, that they're not spending time in there day in and day out. But it's pulling in information, so you've got what's happening with the CRM, so you know how your employees are actually working and what skills they have. So it can automatically help you understand what are the best projects, that it'll help you understand who's the most likely to get things done. And you know what, if you schedule a project to be done the day after the Super Bowl, historically that doesn't work for you based on this. But it's going to be helping them and guiding them so much more that I think that we can see easily a 10%, if not 15% gain in productivity by people actually collaborating correctly with the right operational systems of record driving work across the business rather than simply tracking and reporting it.
I agree with everything you said there. I was thinking, just jumping automatically to how some of that stuff, I mean, we're starting to see that, come through with some of the machine learning suggestions around that. You think of even like how you can set up around different platforms, like auto provisioning of these things to pull the pieces in, where based on the requirements, based on the initial inputs for that, where the system could even start looking at, as you start collaborating, right, working on that it then drops in components based on what it sees in the patterns for those collaboration.
Absolutely. It absolutely say, hey, well, I see, knowing what I've known about these people, the best way you're going to collaborate with them is this, and at these times and at these areas. And the primitive versions will suggest it for you. The more advanced versions, it will just do it all for you, and you'll just be like, oh, and it'll just be automatic. Like you said, that I like your Palmolive moment. It'll be like, it'll just do it for you right there and setting it up for you and auto configuring completely.
No, I think that I think you're spot on with that. I mean, I always, when I started at Microsoft in 2006, one of the first things went and looked at, Microsoft has every few years their video, like the home and the workplace of the future. It was actually one of the buildings over on the East Campus where they actually have the whole setup, and you can go walk through and look at hardware and all that kind of stuff. And I always thought, how there was this one version of that video where like the guy wakes up in the morning and he's looking at, he's got a piece of glass, and suddenly all this phone and tablet still like pops up on it. And then as he's walking in the bathroom, he just kind of flicks it to the wall and it pops up. And anyway, and then his car is like following and all this kind of stuff. And my first thought was that in the future, invest in Windex, because everything's glass and has fingerprints everywhere. But two, of this, that we have this flexible, screens and everywhere, and the ability for it know where you are, and based in context of what you're doing. I'm driving now. Don't send me files to view, that kind of stuff. But and then in our work, context and all of that, to be aware of where you are in context with the people, and then make suggestions around that. And I'd say that version of that film has probably been updated a couple times since then, since 2006. But almost everything that we saw in that video is available now. It's
absolutely
close to it. And so, yeah, I think that you're right. It's going back to Deming's kind of futures, like constantly, optimize the system. That is a big part of that, where the value add of a lot of the advanced will be, is to automatically adjust based on those patterns. And
right.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. To me, we're set to take advantage of some of the greatest increases in productivity as we're able to use these tools correctly. Whereas now, we're in the early stages where it's causing some interesting stuff.
Although I do want to have the robot sitting next to me, so if something goes wrong, I could be like, someone to blame in my home office. Right there.
Their fault. That's
like,
awesome.
Even if you have some kind of soft padding where I can smack or something, But hey, Steve, I really appreciate your time talking today. Hey, if people want to connect, find out more about you and what you're doing, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way to get in touch with me is on Twitter. It is at Stephen ZoBell. Love to connect with you, answer any questions or anything about that. Christian, it's been great having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And of course, you can also go visit Steve's company, workfront.com, and find out a lot more information about what you're doing and where you play in the space. So thanks a lot, Steve, for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.